The perfect morning that wasn't Rebecca Hartford stood before the full-length mirror in the bridal suite of the Fairmont Hotel, her hands trembling as she adjusted the delicate lace sleeves of her wedding gown. The ivory silk hugged her figure perfectly, exactly as it had during her final fitting 2 weeks ago. October sunlight streamed through the tall windows overlooking Boston Harbor, casting a golden glow across the room that should have felt magical but instead felt suffocating. "You look absolutely stunning." "Sweetheart," her mother, Patricia, whispered from behind her, carefully arranging the cathedral-length veil that had been in their family for 3 generations, the same veil her grandmother wore in 1952, the same one her mother wore in 1978, and now the same one that Rebecca had dreamed of wearing since she was a little girl. Rebecca forced a smile, but her reflection betrayed her. Dark circles shadowed her brown eyes despite the professional makeup, and her usually warm complexion looked pale. Something felt wrong. She had tried calling Tyler 3 times that morning, but each call went straight to voicemail. His best man, Derek, had assured her everything was fine, that Tyler was just nervous, and had turned off his phone to calm his nerves. "Mom, do you think Tyler really wants this?" Rebecca asked suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. Patricia paused in her work with the veil, meeting her daughter's eyes in the mirror. "Honey, every groom gets cold feet. Tyler loves you. You've been together since college. This is just normal wedding day jitters." But Rebecca knew Tyler better than anyone. They had dated for 6 years, living together for the last 2 in a cozy brownstone apartment in Back Bay. She knew his habits, his patterns, his tells when something was bothering him. And for the past month, he had been distant, distracted, always on his phone with a secretive expression that made her stomach twist with unnamed anxiety. The guests arrived downstairs in the grand ballroom of the Fairmont. 200 guests filled the white chairs arranged in neat rows facing an arch covered in white roses and hydrangeas. Rebecca's father, Thomas, a respected cardiac surgeon, greeted guests with a forced smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He too had noticed Tyler's recent behavior and had expressed his concerns to Rebecca just last week. "Rebecca, are you absolutely certain about this?" he had asked over dinner. "Marriage is forever. If you have any doubts, any at all, we can postpone." But Rebecca had dismissed his concerns. She had invested 6 years of her life into this relationship. She had turned down a prestigious job offer in New York to stay in Boston with Tyler. She had carefully maintained her virginity, honoring both her personal values and Tyler's supposed respect for traditional courtship. Everything was planned. Everything was perfect on paper. Among the guests sat her closest friends from Boston University, colleagues from her event planning company, Elegant Occasions, and family members who had traveled from across the country. Her best friend, Claire Montgomery, kept checking her phone anxiously, her usual cheerful demeanor replaced by visible tension, the devastating phone call at exactly 2 o'clock. 15 minutes before the ceremony was scheduled to begin, Patricia's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and her face went completely white. "Excuse me for just a moment," she said to Rebecca, stepping into the hallway with an urgency that made Rebecca's heart pound. Through the door, Rebecca could hear her mother's voice rising in pitch. "What do you mean he's not coming? Derek, this is not funny. Where is Tyler?" Rebecca's world tilted on its axis. She walked to the door on unsteady legs, her designer heels suddenly feeling like lead weights. Patricia was leaning against the wall, tears streaming down her carefully made-up face. "Mom?" Rebecca's voice cracked. "What's happening?" Patricia couldn't speak. She simply handed Rebecca her phone where a text message from Derek was displayed on the screen. "Tyler can't go through with it. He's at Logan Airport with Amanda from his office. They've been seeing each other for 2 months. He said to tell Rebecca he's sorry, but he can't marry someone he doesn't love anymore. He said she deserves better than a lie." The phone slipped from Rebecca's numb fingers and clattered to the marble floor. The sound echoed in the suddenly too quiet hallway. Amanda Richardson, the new marketing director at Tyler's architectural firm. The blonde, confident woman who Tyler had mentioned casually over dinner countless times. "Just a colleague," he had assured her. "Nothing to worry about." The longest walk would happen next felt like an out-of-body experience. Rebecca remembered her father's strong arms, catching her as her knees buckled. She remembered her younger brother Michael, punching the wall hard enough to leave blood on the cream-colored paint. She remembered Claire sobbing beside her, holding her hand so tightly it hurt. But most of all, she remembered the walk down the aisle that should have led to her future husband, but instead led to 200 pitying faces. Patricia had wanted to make an announcement, to spare her daughter the humiliation, but Rebecca had refused. "I need to face this," she had said with a calmness that surprised even herself. "They all came here today. They deserve to hear it from me." So she walked alone, down that white carpet scattered with rose petals, her veil trailing behind her like a ghost of dreams that would never be. The string quartet fell silent. The whispers grew louder. When she reached the front of the room, she turned to face the crowd, her hands clasped tightly to keep them from shaking. "Thank you all for coming today," Rebecca began, her voice surprisingly steady. "I know you came here to witness a wedding, but sometimes life has different plans. Tyler has decided that he cannot marry me. He has chosen to be with someone else." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone in the back started crying. Her grandmother, sitting in the front row, made a sound like a wounded animal. "I want you all to know that I'm going to be okay," Rebecca continued, though she wasn't sure she believed her own words. "I'm heartbroken. I'm humiliated. And I'm angry. But I'm also realizing that I deserve better than someone who would abandon me on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life." She paused, taking a shaky breath. "The reception dinner is already paid for, and I know the chef at the Fairmont has prepared an incredible meal. So please, stay, eat, drink, and celebrate life, even if we're not celebrating a wedding today. Celebrate honesty. Celebrate courage. Celebrate the truth, however painful it might be." An unexpected presence as Rebecca turned to leave. Desperate to escape to somewhere private where she could finally break down, a man stood up from the back row. She didn't recognize him, though something about his bearing commanded attention. He was tall, probably in his early 30s, with dark hair and striking blue eyes. His tailored charcoal suit spoke of wealth and taste, but it was his expression that caught her attention. Not pity, like everyone else. Something else. Respect, maybe. Admiration. He didn't approach her, didn't try to speak to her. He simply placed his hand over his heart in a gesture that seemed to say, "I see your strength. And it's remarkable." Rebecca held his gaze for just a moment before Claire appeared at her elbow, guiding her away from the crowd and into a private room where she could finally let herself fall apart. She didn't know it then, but that brief moment of connection with the stranger in the back row would change everything. His name was Jonathan Pierce, and he had come to the wedding as a +1 for a business associate. He was a successful hotel developer who had built a small empire of boutique properties across New England. He was also someone who understood heartbreak intimately, having been betrayed by his former fiancé 3 years earlier, and as he watched Rebecca walk away with her head held high despite her shattered world, Jonathan Pierce made a decision. He would find a way to meet this extraordinary woman properly. Not today, not tomorrow, but when she was ready. Because he recognized something in her that he rarely saw. Genuine strength wrapped in vulnerability. The kind of person who could be knocked down, but would always stand back up. 3 months of silence, the weeks following the wedding disaster, blurred together in a haze of pain and humiliation. Rebecca took a leave of absence from elegant occasions, unable to face planning other people's happy events when her own happiness had been so publicly destroyed. She moved out of the brownstone she had shared with Tyler, taking only her personal belongings and leaving behind every shared memory. Tyler tried to contact her once, 2 weeks after abandoning her. He sent a long email explaining his confusion, his sudden realization that he had fallen for Amanda. Did his hope that someday Rebecca could forgive him. She deleted it without finishing it. Some betrayals were too deep for explanations. Her family rallied around her. Her father wanted to sue Tyler for the wedding expenses. Her brother wanted to physically confront him. Her mother simply held her while she cried, night after night, mourning not just the loss of Tyler, but the loss of the future she had so carefully planned. But slowly, painfully, Rebecca began to heal. She returned to work in January, throwing herself into creating beautiful events for other people. She started therapy, working through the abandonment issues and the self-doubt that Tyler's betrayal had planted. She even began to rediscover who she was outside of being Tyler's girlfriend. Tyler's fiancé, Tyler's almost wife. By February, she was ready to attend her first social event since the disaster. The Boston Children's Hospital annual gala, a fundraiser that her company had planned. She wore a simple but elegant navy dress, kept her makeup minimal, and reminded herself that she was attending as a professional. Not as a woman looking for romance or validation. She had no way of knowing that Jonathan Pierce would be there, that he had specifically bought a table when he learned her company was handling the event, that he had been waiting patiently for 3 months for the right moment to properly introduce himself. Sometimes, Rebecca would later reflect, the universe has a way of bringing people together when they're finally ready to meet. The gala encounter. The Boston Children's Hospital gala sparkled with elegance and purpose. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across the ballroom of the Boston Harbor Hotel, where nearly 400 guests mingled in formal attire, their champagne glasses catching the light like tiny stars. Rebecca stood near the entrance, clipboard in hand, coordinating with the catering staff and ensuring every detail of the evening unfolded perfectly. This was her element, creating beauty, orchestrating moments, making other people's visions come to life. For the past 2 hours, she had been so focused on logistics that she had barely thought about Tyler. About the wedding that never happened? About the humiliation that still occasionally woke her at 3 a.m. with a racing heart? "Everything looks absolutely perfect," said Carolyn Bennett, the hospital's development director, approaching with a warm smile. "Rebecca, you and your team have outdone yourselves. The ice sculptures, the centerpieces, even the lighting. It's magical. Thank you, Carolyn." "That means everything," Rebecca replied, genuinely pleased. This event represented her return to full form, proof that she could still create something beautiful even after her personal world had crumbled. "There's someone I'd like you to meet," Caroline continued, gesturing toward a tall man approaching from across the room. "Jonathan Pierce, one of our most generous donors. Jonathan, this is Rebecca Hartford from Elegant Occasions. She's the mastermind behind tonight's event." Rebecca looked up and felt her breath catch. It was him. The man from the back row of her wedding, the one who had looked at her with respect instead of pity. He looked even more striking than she remembered, his dark suit perfectly tailored, his blue eyes warm and intelligent. "Miss Hartford," Jonathan said, extending his hand. "I'm honored to finally meet you properly." "Your work tonight is exceptional, finally," Rebecca questioned, shaking his hand and feeling an unexpected jolt of connection at the touch. Jonathan's expression became gentle, almost apologetic. "I was at the Fairmont in October. A business associates +1. I witnessed what you went through that day, and I've thought about your courage many times since." Rebecca felt her cheeks flush, old embarrassment threatening to surface. But Jonathan continued quickly. "What I saw that day wasn't a woman being humiliated. I saw someone facing an impossible situation with grace and strength that most people couldn't manage. You handled your pain with dignity, and that's extraordinarily rare." Caroline excused herself tactfully, sensing something significant passing between them. Rebecca found herself studying Jonathan's face, looking for any sign of dishonesty or ulterior motive, but finding only sincerity. "That's a generous interpretation," Rebecca said quietly. "Most people saw a pathetic woman getting abandoned at the altar." "Then most people weren't really looking," Jonathan replied. "Would you consider joining me for dinner sometime? Not as a business meeting, and not out of pity, but because I'd genuinely like to know the woman behind that remarkable strength, careful courtship." Rebecca said yes to that dinner, surprising herself. They met 3 days later at a small Italian restaurant in the North End. Far from the usual haunts, where she might run into mutual acquaintances, or worse, Tyler and Amanda, Jonathan arrived exactly on time, bringing no flowers or gifts, respecting her stated wish to keep things simple and pressure-free. "Tell me about hotel development," Rebecca said after they ordered, deliberately steering the conversation toward safe. "Professional territory," Jonathan smiled, recognizing her strategy, but playing along. I started with one property in Portland, Maine, a historic building that everyone said was beyond saving. I spent 2 years renovating it, preserving the original character while modernizing everything else. It became profitable within 6 months. And now? Rebecca asked, genuinely interested despite her defensive walls. 12 boutique hotels across New England, each one unique, each one telling its own story. I don't believe in cookie-cutter hospitality. Every location should feel like coming home to a place you've never been before. The conversation flowed easily from there. Jonathan talked about his business philosophy, his love of historical architecture, his foundation that provided hospitality training for underprivileged youth. Rebecca shared her passion for event planning, how she loved creating moments that people would remember forever. Even though the irony of that statement wasn't lost on her, given recent events. May I ask about what happened? Jonathan ventured carefully over dessert. You don't have to answer. But I sense you're still carrying the weight of it. Rebecca set down her fork, considering. Something about Jonathan made her want to be honest in a way she hadn't been with anyone except her therapist. Tyler and I were together for 6 years, she began. We met at Boston University. He was studying architecture. I was studying business and design. We were that couple, you know? The one everyone said was perfect together. We talked about forever, about children, about growing old together. She paused, taking a sip of water. I believed in doing things the traditional way. No living together before engagement, no intimacy before marriage. Tyler said he respected that, said he loved that about me. But apparently, while he was telling me he respected my values, he was sleeping with Amanda from his office. Jonathan's jaw tightened slightly, but he said nothing, letting her continue. The worst part wasn't even the abandonment, Rebecca admitted. It was realizing that I had spent 6 years with someone who never really saw me. I was convenient. I was safe. I fit into his life plan until someone more exciting came along. And I never saw it coming because I was so busy planning our future that I wasn't paying attention to our present. That's his failure, not yours, Jonathan said firmly. Trust isn't stupidity, Rebecca. You gave him your trust because you believed he earned it. That makes you someone with integrity, not someone with poor judgment. Tyler's shadow returns over the next 2 months. Rebecca and Jonathan saw each other regularly. Dinners turned into weekend walks along the Charles River. Conversations deepened from polite, getting to know you exchanges to genuine discussions about fears, dreams, and vulnerabilities. Jonathan was patient, never pushing for more than Rebecca was ready to give. Content to build a foundation of friendship and trust before anything else, Rebecca found herself laughing again, something she hadn't done genuinely since before the wedding disaster. Jonathan had a dry wit that caught her off guard, a way of seeing humor in everyday situations that lightened her still healing heart. He also had an uncanny ability to know when she needed space and when she needed company. But just as Rebecca was beginning to believe that maybe, possibly, she could risk opening her heart again, Tyler reappeared. It started with an email in late April. Subject line, I made the biggest mistake of my life. Rebecca stared at the message in her inbox for a full minute before deleting it unread. But Tyler was persistent. More emails followed, then text messages, then a bouquet of white roses delivered to her office with a card that read, 6 years can't mean nothing. Please talk to me. You won't stop, Rebecca told Claire over coffee one Saturday morning. 15 messages in 3 days. He says Amanda was a mistake, that he was confused and scared, that he realizes now that I'm the one he really loves. Claire's expression was thunderous. That manipulative piece of garbage, he had his chance, Becca. He threw it away in the most public, humiliating way possible. Now that you're moving on, now that you're happy again, suddenly he realizes what he lost? He showed up at my parents' house yesterday, Rebecca admitted. Talked to my dad for an hour. Said he wants to make things right, that he'll do anything to earn back my trust. What did your dad say? That it's my decision. But I could tell he wanted to punch Tyler in the face. Rebecca managed a weak smile. Dad's been Team Jonathan since I first mentioned him. Speaking of Jonathan, have you told him about Tyler's campaign? Claire asked gently. Rebecca shook her head. We're not in a relationship, not officially. We're just spending time together, getting to know each other. I don't want to drag him into my drama. Becca, you're absolutely in a relationship. You see each other 4 times a week. He calls you every morning. He brought you soup when you had the flu last month and sat with you watching terrible reality TV for 6 hours. That's a relationship, honey. The confrontation that evening, Rebecca finally agreed to meet Tyler for coffee. Not because she wanted reconciliation, but because she needed closure. She needed to look him in the eye and hear him explain the inexplicable. They met at a neutral location, a busy Starbucks in Cambridge, where she felt safe surrounded by strangers. Tyler arrived looking thinner than she remembered, with dark circles under his eyes and a desperate energy that made her uncomfortable. "Thank you for coming," he began immediately, reaching across the table for her hands. She pulled them back, folding them in her lap. "Tyler, why are you doing this?" she asked directly. "Where was this realization 6 months ago? Where was it when you were sleeping with Amanda while I was choosing wedding invitations?" "I was an idiot," Tyler said, his voice breaking. "I got scared. The commitment, the forever of it all. Amanda represented freedom, excitement, no strings attached. But it was all an illusion, Becca. She wasn't real. We weren't real. What you and I had, that was real." "What we had," Rebecca corrected firmly, past tense. "You destroyed that, Tyler. Not through a mistake or an accident, but through deliberate choices made over months. You looked me in the eye every day while betraying me." I know. I'm not making excuses. I'm just asking for a chance to prove I've changed. That I understand now what I threw away." Rebecca looked at this man she had once loved. This man she had planned to spend her life with, and felt nothing but sadness for time wasted. "Tyler, do you know what the worst part was?" she asked quietly. "It wasn't the abandonment at the altar. It wasn't even the affair. It was realizing that you never really loved me. You loved the idea of me. You loved having someone devoted to you, someone who made your life comfortable and organized. But you never actually saw me as a person separate from how I fit into your plans." "That's not true," Tyler protested. "It is true. Because if you had really loved me, if you had really known me, you would have talked to me about your doubts. You would have been honest when you've developed feelings for someone else. You would have respected me enough to end things before humiliating me in front of 200 people. Tyler looked stricken. "Becca, please. We can start over. We can go to therapy, rebuild trust. I'll do anything." "I'm seeing someone," Rebecca said, the words coming out more confidently than she expected. "Someone who treats me with respect from day one. Someone who doesn't need to lose me to realize my value. And even if I wasn't seeing anyone, my answer would still be no. We're done, Tyler. We were done the moment you chose Amanda over honesty." She stood up, gathering her bag. "I hope you find happiness. I really do. But you won't find it by trying to recapture something you destroyed. Move forward, Tyler. I already have." Jonathan's truth that night, Rebecca drove directly to Jonathan's townhouse in Beacon Hill. She hadn't called ahead, hadn't warned him she was coming. She just needed to see him, to tell him the truth about Tyler's attempts at reconciliation. To be honest about her own growing feelings, Jonathan answered the door in jeans and a casual sweater. Surprise and pleasure crossing his face when he saw her. "Rebecca, this is a wonderful surprise. Come in," inside his elegant living room. With its exposed brick walls and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, Rebecca told him everything. About Tyler's emails and messages, about the meeting that evening, about her final rejection of any possibility of reconciliation. Jonathan listened without interrupting, his expression thoughtful. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "I need to tell you something," he finally said. "And I hope it doesn't change things between us, but you deserve complete honesty." Rebecca's heart clenched. Here it comes, she thought. The revelation that would shatter this fragile new beginning. 3 years ago, I was engaged to a woman named Natalie Westbrook, Jonathan began. We'd been together for 2 years. She came from old Boston money, connected to all the right families, moved in all the right circles. My business was taking off, and she seemed like the perfect partner for that world. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Rebecca had learned meant he was uncomfortable. 2 months before our wedding, I came home early from a business trip and found her in bed with her personal trainer. Cliché, right? But the worst part wasn't the affair. It was what she said afterward. What did she say? Rebecca asked softly. She said she loved me but wasn't in love with me. That I was a great provider, a respectable husband for her social circle, but that I didn't excite her. That she had been planning to go through with the wedding anyway because divorce was always an option if she got bored. Rebecca felt a surge of anger on his behalf. Jonathan, I'm so sorry. The point is, he continued, I understand betrayal. I understand having your future ripped away. And I also understand the temptation to accept a familiar pain over an uncertain future. When Natalie tried to reconcile, when her parents pressured me to forgive her, I almost did. Not because I loved her, but because it was easier than starting over. What made you walk away? Rebecca asked. Jonathan looked directly at her, his blue eyes intense. I realized I'd rather be alone than be with someone who saw me as a convenience instead of a choice. I'd rather wait for something real than settle for something comfortable. He moved closer, taking her hands gently. Rebecca, these past 2 months with you have been the most genuine, most meaningful time I've spent with anyone in years. You're not a replacement for what I lost with Natalie. You're something entirely new, entirely better. And I need you to know that I'm not with you because I pity you or because I'm trying to rescue you. I'm with you because you're brilliant and strong and funny and real. Rebecca felt tears building. I'm scared, Jonathan. I'm terrified of trusting again, of believing in something and having it destroyed. What if I'm making the same mistake with different packaging? You're not, Jonathan assured her, and I can prove it. Ask me anything. My phone, my computer, my calendar, my friends. I want you to trust me, but I also want to earn that trust through complete transparency. No secrets, no surprises, nothing hidden. For the first time since Tyler's betrayal, Rebecca felt truly seen. Not as a victim needing rescue, not as a prize to be won back, but as an equal partner deserving of respect and honesty. I'm not ready for anything physical, she said carefully. I know that's probably frustrating for a man your age, but those are still my values, and they matter to me. Jonathan smiled, genuine and warm. Rebecca, I'm courting you, not trying to sleep with you. When and if you're ready for physical intimacy, it will be because you choose it, not because I pressured you. Your values aren't obstacles. They're part of who you are, and I respect that completely. That night, sitting in Jonathan's living room with classical music playing softly in the background, Rebecca allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, second chances could be better than first attempts. The public campaigned 2 weeks after her final rejection of Tyler. Rebecca woke to her phone exploding with notifications. Text messages from friends, missed calls from family, social media alerts piling up faster than she could read them. Still groggy, she opened her Facebook app and felt her stomach drop. Tyler had posted a long, emotional message on his public profile, accompanied by a photo of them from 2 years ago at Martha's Vineyard, both smiling in front of a sunset. The post had been shared over 3,000 times. Sometimes we don't realize what we have until it's gone. Rebecca Hartford, you are the love of my life, and I was too blind and stupid to see it. I made the worst mistake any man could make. I betrayed your trust, abandoned you on our wedding day, and hurt you in ways I can never fully repair. But I'm asking publicly, in front of everyone who witnessed my failure, for a second chance. True love deserves forgiveness. Please, Becca, let me prove that people can change. Let me show you the man I should have been from the beginning. I love you, and I always will. The comments section was a battlefield. Some people praised Tyler's honesty and vulnerability. Others called him manipulative. Several mutual friends tagged Rebecca, asking if she'd seen it, if she was okay, what she thought. Her private messages were flooded with opinions from people she barely knew. Everyone's suddenly an expert on her love life. That manipulative son of a Claire's text appeared on her screen. Becca, he's using public pressure to manipulate you. This is toxic behavior disguised as romance. Rebecca's hands shook as she read through more comments. Tyler's friends defending him. Her friends defending her. Strangers weighing in with their judgments about forgiveness, second chances, true love, the sanctity of long relationships. Her mother called. Sweetheart, have you seen Tyler's post? Your father and I think you should consider his offer. 6 years is a long time. Maybe people do deserve second chances. Even her mother. Rebecca felt betrayed all over again. Why was everyone more concerned with Tyler's redemption than with her healing? She called Jonathan, her voice tight with barely controlled emotion. Have you seen it? I have, Jonathan said calmly. Where are you right now? Home. In my apartment. Hiding from the world? I'm coming over. Don't respond to anything until we talk. The decision, Jonathan arrived within 30 minutes, bringing coffee and pastries from her favorite bakery. He found Rebecca sitting on her couch, wrapped in a blanket, her phone face down on the coffee table. Talk to me, he said gently. Sitting beside her, everyone thinks I should forgive him, Rebecca said, her voice hollow. My mother, half my friends, random strangers on the internet, they're saying I'm bitter, that I'm punishing him for being human and making mistakes. Some people are even suggesting that if I really loved him, I'd give him another chance. What do you think? Jonathan asked. I think Tyler is manipulating the narrative. He's not posting that message for me. He's posting it for everyone else, to paint himself as the reformed bad boy and me as the cold woman who won't forgive. It's not about love. It's about ego. Jonathan nodded. I agree. But here's what I want to know. How do you feel about him? Not about the situation, not about what people think, but about Tyler himself. When you see his face, what do you feel? Rebecca considered the question honestly. Nothing, she admitted. Maybe a little sadness for what I thought we had. But no love, no longing, no desire to go back. Is that horrible? Should I feel something after 6 years together? You feel exactly what you should feel, Jonathan assured her. You've moved on. You've healed. And Tyler's public campaign doesn't change that. But what if everyone's right? What if I'm being too harsh, too unforgiving? Jonathan took her hands, his expression serious. Rebecca, forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. You can forgive Tyler for his sake and yours, releasing the anger so it doesn't poison you. But forgiving him doesn't obligate you to give him another chance. Those are two completely separate things. My mother said that true love means fighting for the relationship, not giving up at the first obstacle. This wasn't an obstacle, Jonathan said firmly. An obstacle is disagreeing about where to live or how to manage finances. What Tyler did was a fundamental betrayal of trust. He made a conscious choice, repeatedly, over months, to deceive you. That's not an obstacle. That's a deal breaker. Rebecca felt something release in her chest, a tension she hadn't realized she was carrying. You're right. I know you're right. I just wish everyone else could see it. And let's show them, Jonathan said, a determined glint in his eyes. The grand gesture. What do you mean? Rebecca asked. Jonathan stood up. Pacing her small living room with the focused energy she had learned meant he was formulating a plan. Tyler made a public spectacle to pressure you into reconciliation. He's banking on social pressure, on people's romantic notions about second chances and true love. But he's operating under a false assumption, which is that you're available, that you're single and pining for him, that you're just waiting for the right grand gesture to take him back. Jonathan stopped pacing and looked at her intently. What if we showed everyone publicly and unmistakably that you've already moved on? That you've already found something better? Rebecca's heart started racing. Jonathan, what are you suggesting? He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and Rebecca's breath caught in her throat. I bought this 2 weeks ago, Jonathan admitted. I've been waiting for the perfect moment, but Tyler's manipulation has forced my hand. I don't want to propose to you because of him or because of public pressure. I want to propose because I genuinely, completely want to spend my life with you. He opened the box, revealing a stunning sapphire engagement ring surrounded by diamonds. Elegant and unique, nothing like the traditional solitaire Tyler had given her. Rebecca Hartford, I know we've only been together for a few months. I know you're still healing from betrayal. I know this is fast and unconventional and possibly insane. But I also know that I love you, that I respect you, that I see you as an equal partner in every way. Will you marry me? Rebecca stared at the ring, then at Jonathan, her mind racing. This was crazy. They had known each other for less than 6 months. People would say it was a rebound, that she was rushing into something to avoid dealing with her pain. Her mother would have concerns. Claire would have questions. But as she looked into Jonathan's blue eyes, seeing nothing but sincerity and love, she realized something profound. She trusted him. Not blindly, not naively, but with full awareness and conscious choice. She trusted him because he had earned it through consistent actions, through transparency. Through respecting her boundaries and values, she whispered. And then louder, more confidently, yes, I'll marry you. Jonathan slipped the ring on her finger, and for the first time in months, Rebecca felt completely, utterly, joyfully happy. This was what love should feel like: chosen, respected, valued. Now, Jonathan said with a mischievous smile, let's make a statement of our own. The press conference 3 days later, the ballroom of the Boston Harbor Hotel, the same venue where Rebecca had planned Tyler's ill-fated wedding reception, was filled with reporters, photographers, and curious onlookers. Jonathan had called a press conference, ostensibly to announce a major donation to Boston Children's Hospital, but everyone suspected there was more to the story. Rebecca stood backstage, her hand in Jonathan's. Wearing an elegant emerald green dress that brought out her eyes and her new engagement ring catching the light, she was terrified and exhilarated in equal measure. "I don't have to do this," Jonathan said quietly. "If you want to keep things private, I'll cancel right now." "No," Rebecca said firmly. "Tyler made our breakup public. He made his attempts at reconciliation public. It's time to make my happiness public, too." They walked onto the small stage together, and the camera flashes immediately intensified. Jonathan stepped up to the microphone first, his hand never leaving Rebecca's. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. Yes, I'm making a significant donation to Boston Children's Hospital, details of which are in your press packets. But that's not why I asked you here today." He looked at Rebecca with such genuine affection that several reporters audibly sighed. "I want to introduce you to my fiancé, Rebecca Hartford. Some of you may recognize her name from recent social media discussions about second chances and forgiveness. But what you don't know is Rebecca's full story." Jonathan's voice was strong and clear. 6 months ago, Rebecca was publicly humiliated when her then-fiancé abandoned her at their wedding altar to be with another woman. She could have become bitter. She could have let that betrayal define her. Instead, she rebuilt her life with grace, strength, and dignity. She turned her pain into purpose, focusing on her career and her own growth. He squeezed her hand. "When I met Rebecca, I didn't see a victim. I saw a survivor. I saw a woman who refused to let someone else's failure diminish her own worth. And I fell in love with that strength, that resilience, that unwavering integrity." Rebecca stepped forward, her voice clear despite her nerves. "There's been a lot of public discussion lately about whether I should give Tyler Bennett a second chance. People I don't know have opinions about my capacity for forgiveness, my openness to reconciliation, my willingness to fight for love." She paused, looking directly at the cameras. "Here's my answer. I do believe in second chances. I believe in forgiveness. I believe in fighting for love. But I also believe in self-respect. I believe in recognizing when something is irreparably broken. And I believe that true love doesn't require public manipulation or social pressure. Tyler made his choices 6 months ago when he chose deception over honesty. When he chose another woman over the woman he promised to marry. Those were his decisions, and I respect them. But I also respect myself enough to say no to someone who only wants me back because I'm no longer available." Jonathan put his arm around her shoulders. "Rebecca has agreed to marry me, not because I rescued her, or because she's trying to make someone jealous. She's marrying me because we've built something real, based on mutual respect, transparency, and genuine partnership. And anyone who thinks she's making a mistake doesn't truly know the remarkable woman she is." The room exploded with questions, but Rebecca and Jonathan simply waved and walked off stage together. Behind them, they could hear the chaos of reporters shouting questions. But none of it mattered anymore. The final confrontation. Silence fell over the room. Richard exchanged a look with Catherine. Taylor smiled. "How refreshing," Catherine finally said. "An honest answer." Everyone who comes into this family usually tells us exactly what they think we want to hear. I do not know what you want to hear, Mrs. Blackwell. I only know my truth. I am not sophisticated or educated in the right schools. I do not know which fork to use at fancy dinners. But I work hard, I treat people with respect, and I genuinely care about your son. She also has brilliant ideas for the medical foundation, Preston added. Her perspective has been invaluable. The scholarship program was her idea. So were the mobile clinic locations. The foundation. Richard perked up. I read the updated proposal. Impressive work. Much more practical than the original plan. That is Cassidy's influence. She understands the actual problems we are trying to solve. Still, Catherine said, you must realize the challenges ahead. The scrutiny will not stop. Society can be cruel to people who do not fit predetermined molds. Our world has expectations, rules unspoken but powerful. I know. I have been experiencing that all week. And yet you are still here. I am still here. Catherine studied Cassidy for a long moment. You have courage. I respect that. Richard. Preston's father sighed. If Preston loves you and you love him, then I suppose we can navigate the rest. But understand this, young lady. If you hurt my son, there is nowhere you can hide. I would never intentionally hurt him. I cannot promise we will work out because life is unpredictable. But I can promise I will try my best. Taylor jumped up and hugged Cassidy unexpectedly. Welcome to the family. I have been waiting for someone to shake things up around here. It was getting boring. The rest of the lunch went surprisingly well. Catherine asked about Cassidy's nursing studies with genuine interest. Richard discussed the foundation logistics. Taylor wanted to know everything about how they met, laughing at the pool story. It was not perfect. Cassidy could still feel the reservation, the watchfulness. But it was a start. The scholarship announcement 2 weeks later. Preston held a press conference to officially launch the Blackwell Medical Access Initiative. He insisted Cassidy stand with him at the podium, despite her protests. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming, Preston began. The hotel ballroom was packed with reporters, medical professionals, and community leaders. Today, I am proud to announce a $200 million commitment to improving healthcare access in underserved communities. He outlined the mobile clinics, the free diagnostic services, the medication assistance programs. Then he got to the part that made Cassidy's throat tight. We are also establishing the Helen Brooks Memorial Nursing Scholarship Fund, named in honor of a remarkable woman who taught her daughter the value of compassion and perseverance. Each year we will fund full scholarships for 50 nursing students from low-income backgrounds. He looked directly at Cassidy. None of this would exist without Cassidy Brooks. She showed me that real change requires listening to people who live the problems we are trying to solve. She challenged my assumptions, expanded my perspective, and reminded me what truly matters in life. Preston took her hand. She also captured my heart. I know our relationship has generated attention and speculation. Let me be clear. Cassidy is not a publicity stunt or a phase. She is the woman I love, and I am incredibly lucky she chose to give me a chance. The room exploded with questions. Cassidy stood frozen, overwhelmed by the cameras and voices. Miss Brooks, how do you respond to critics who say you are only with Preston for his money? She thought about not answering, but then she remembered what got her through everything else. Honesty. Understand why people think that. I would probably think the same thing from the outside looking in. But here is what I know. Preston jumped into a pool, fully clothed to save my life before he knew anything about me. He paid for my mother's treatment without expecting anything in return. He listened to my ideas about healthcare access when he could have dismissed me as just the help. Her voice strengthened. He sees me as a person, not a project or a trophy. That is why I love him. Not because of his bank account, but because of his heart. What about the class difference? How do you navigate that? Awkwardly, she admitted, getting laughs. I still do not know which fork to use. I feel out of place at fancy events. But Preston never makes me feel less than. We are learning together how to build a relationship that honors both our backgrounds. Mr. Blackwell, your business partners have expressed concern. Do you worry this relationship will impact the company? Anyone who has a problem with who I love is welcome to take their business elsewhere. I will not apologize for choosing happiness over other people's narrow expectations." The press conference wrapped up, but the real impact came in the days after. Stories shifted from scandal to support. Medical schools contacted them about partnership opportunities. Donations to the foundation exceeded projections. The scholarship fund received 15,000 applications in the first week. Most importantly, Cassidy received a letter from the nursing school. They were not only allowing her to complete her missed exam, but offering her a merit-based scholarship for her final year. "It is really happening," she told Preston one evening as they reviewed thank you notes. "People are getting help because of what we started, because of what you started. I just wrote the check. You did more than that. You believed in me when I did not believe in myself." He pulled her close. "You made that easy. You are extraordinary, Cassidy Brooks. So are you, Preston Blackwell." They kissed, soft and sweet, and Cassidy felt something she had never felt before: complete peace. This was where she belonged, in his arms. Building something meaningful together. The graduation 80 months later. Cassidy walked across the stage in cap and gown, receiving her nursing degree with honors. The auditorium erupted when her name was called. Preston stood and cheered loudly, not caring about the stares. Helen was there too, breathing easier thanks to the treatment Preston had funded. Catherine and Richard sat with her, having slowly warmed to Cassidy over the months. Taylor filmed everything on her phone after the ceremony. They gathered for dinner at a restaurant Preston had rented out for the occasion. Friends from nursing school, mixed with Blackwell family members. Rita even came, having become one of Cassidy's biggest supporters after an initial rough patch. "I am proud of you, baby girl," Helen said, hugging her daughter tight. "You did it. You did it, Mama. I could not have done any of this without you." Preston tapped his glass, calling for attention. "I know this is Cassidy's night, so I will be brief. 15 months ago, I met someone who changed my entire life. She taught me about real courage, about working for what matters, about love that transforms everything." He turned to Cassidy. "You made me want to be worthy of you." He got down on one knee. The room went silent. "Cassidy Brooks, you are the strongest, kindest, most incredible person I have ever known. You challenge me, inspire me, and make every day better just by being in it. Will you marry me?" The ring was stunning, but Cassidy barely noticed it. She looked at Preston, at this man who had seen past her cleaning uniform to the person underneath, who had supported her dreams and helped her mother and built a foundation to help thousands of other people like them. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, "Yes." The room erupted in cheers. Preston slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her while everyone applauded. Helen cried happy tears. Catherine smiled. All her earlier reservations clearly forgotten. The wedding they married 6 months later at County General Hospital, the same place where Helen had received treatment. Preston had funded a new wing there. The wedding took place in the garden courtyard outside the children's unit. It was not a typical society wedding. The guest list included cleaning crews, nursing students, foundation recipients, and yes, some Blackwell business associates. Patients from the children's ward watched from windows. Waving at the bride, Cassidy wore a simple but elegant dress, nothing like the designer gowns Preston could have bought her. She wanted to be herself on her wedding day, not a costume version for society's approval. Helen walked her down the aisle, oxygen tank and all. "Your father would be so proud," she whispered. "I know I am." Preston's vows made Cassidy cry. "You taught me that wealth means nothing without purpose. That privilege carries responsibility. That love is about seeing someone completely and choosing them anyway. I see you, Cassidy. All of you. And I choose you every day for the rest of my life." Her vows were simpler. "You saved my life twice, once from drowning and once from believing I did not deserve happiness. I promise to always be honest with you, to challenge you when you need it, to support your dreams while building my own. I promise to love you not for what you have, but for who you are." They sealed their promises with a kiss, while hospital staff and society members alike cheered together.